Brought to you by Penguin.
The Gendered Brain by Gina Rippon, read by Catherine Bailey. Few tragedies can be more extensive than the stunting of life. Few injustices deeper than the denial of an opportunity to strive, or even to hope, by a limit imposed from without, but falsely identified as lying within. Stephen Jay Gould, The Mismeasure of Man. Introduction. Whack-a-mole myths. This book is about an idea that has its roots in the 18th century and still persists today. That is the notion that you can sex a brain, that you can describe a brain as male or female, and that you can attribute any differences between individuals in behaviour, abilities, achievements, personality, even hopes and expectations to the possession of one or the other type of brain. It is a notion that has inaccurately driven brain science for several centuries, underpins many damaging stereotypes and, I believe, stands in the way of social progress and equality of opportunity. The question of sex differences in the brain is one that has been debated, researched, encouraged, criticised, praised and belittled for over 200 years, and can certainly be found in different guises for long before that. It is an area of entrenched opinion and has been the ongoing focus of just about every research discipline, from genetics to anthropology, mixed with history, sociology, politics and statistics. It is characterised by bizarre claims. Women's inferiority comes from their brains being 5 ounces lighter, which can readily be dismissed, only to pop up again in another form. Women's inability to read maps comes from wiring differences in the brain. Sometimes a single claim lodges itself firmly in the public consciousness as a fact and, despite the best efforts of concerned scientists, remains a deeply entrenched belief. It will be frequently referred to as a well-established fact and triumphantly re-emerge to trump arguments about sex differences or, more worryingly, to drive policy decisions. I think of these seemingly endlessly recurring misconceptions as whack-a-mole myths. Whack-a-mole is an arcade game which involves repeatedly hitting the heads of mechanical moles with a mallet as they pop up through holes in a board. Just when you think you've dispatched them all, another pesky mole pops up elsewhere. The term whack-a-mole is used nowadays to describe a process where a problem keeps recurring after it is supposedly fixed, or any discussion where some type of mistaken assumption keeps popping up despite it supposedly having been dispatched by new and more accurate information. In the context of sex differences, this might be the belief that newborn baby boys prefer to look at tractor mobiles rather than human faces, the men are born to be scientists mole, or that there are more male geniuses and more male idiots, the greater male variability mole. Truths such as these have, as we shall see in this book, been variously whacked over the years, but can still be found in self-help manuals, how-to guides, and even in 21st century arguments about the utility or futility of diversity agendas. And one of the oldest and apparently hardiest of moles is the myth of female and male brains. The so-called female brain has suffered centuries of being described as undersized, underdeveloped, evolutionarily inferior, poorly organised, and generally defective. Further indignities have been heaped upon it as being the cause of women's inferiority, vulnerability, emotional instability, scientific ineptitude, making them unfit for any kind of responsibility, power, or greatness. Theories about women's inferior brains emerged long before we were actually able to study the human brain, other than when it was damaged or dead. Nevertheless, blame the brain was a consistent and persistent mantra when it came to finding explanations for how and why women were different from men. In the 18th and 19th centuries, it was generally accepted that women were socially, intellectually, and emotionally inferior. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the focus shifted to women's supposedly natural roles as carers, mothers, womanly companions of men. The message has been consistent. There are essential differences between men's and women's brains, and these will determine their different capacities and characters and their different places in society. Even though we could not test these assumptions, they remained the bedrock on which
Sample complete. Ready to continue?